Now I could just say that Sonic 4 is an awful game and end the video at that. And you know, I wouldn't be wrong for doing so. But what actually makes Sonic 4 such an awful game? Well, to figure that out, we have to dive in a little bit deeper. Now you may be asking yourself, Davron, what kind of depth does Sonic 4 even have? And to answer that, there is none, but that didn't stop me from making this video. Now on the surface, Sonic 4 seems like an amazing idea, a callback to the classics in a time where Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't really that popular from games like 06 and Unleashed. So Sega realized that they should probably go back to what made the series great in the first place, and go with the classic games for a bit. Whether through pandering to nostalgia, or even putting in more 2D and mainline games like Sonic Colors right after this, Sega knew that they had to call back to the golden days if Sonic was to stay alive as a franchise. And so, Sega looked over their current assets and saw that there was a 2D Sonic game in development for mobile platforms by DIMS. So Sega decided, what if we rename this game to Sonic 4 and treat it as the next mainline entry in the classic Sonic series? That's right, the supposed Sonic 4 wasn't even developed in mind to be Sonic 4, but it was anyway. From the beginning, Sega knew exactly what they were doing marketing the game, as there was the entire playable characters reveal, where they slowly built up to the reveal that Sonic the Hedgehog was the only playable character, because that's one thing that people were demanding. They used classic Sonic all over the marketing material, much like they did with Sonic Forces and Mania, and even with Frontiers a bit. And the game proved to be a critical and commercial success, selling about 1 million copies and getting good reviews from all over the place, which is crazy considering how hated the game is now. But is any of this praise actually warranted? Well, that's what I aim to find out by replaying Sonic 4 Episode 1 and 2. And after playing them all, I can confidently say, absolutely not. Sonic 4 is indeed the biggest piece of garbage I've ever played. In fact, I don't think there's a single element of this game that was done well. But let's start with the worst aspect, and that's the physics. This game tries to recreate the classic Sonic physics as it's claiming, but it fails miserably. Sonic's physics in this game are absolutely awful. And this carries over to Episode 2, just with less intensity, because Episode 2 actually fixed a bit of the physics, even though it's still not accurate to the classics, which it's trying to be, seeing as it's Sonic 4. But Episode 2 is at least fine enough. Episode 1, on the other hand, feels terrible to play. We've all seen the walking up walls clips, but in general it just goes much further. You don't get really any momentum rolling down hills, it's just not as satisfying to control as the original classics were. And at any point where you might have been able to take advantage of the physics, however lacking they are, the game just automates it with springs and countless homing attack chains. For example, in a section like this one, you think, oh, I'm gonna roll down the hill and I'm gonna get launched upwards, like in the classics, but instead, you're just bound to a spring and do a homing attack chain, and that's it. With even more automation to follow it up, of course. And this is about the quality of the average Sonic 4 level design throughout the game. It really doesn't get better. It only gets worse. In classic DIMS fashion, platforming and homing attack chains over bottomless pits are once again back. Much to everyone's enjoyment, I presume. But surely they at least got the visuals right. The classic Sonic games are known for their unique visual themes and identities. I hate to break it to you, but have you been looking at the gameplay so far? Sonic 4 Episode 2 at least has a bit of improvement in this area, with the level themes being more unique, albeit still stolen from past Sonic games, just with a more modern take on them. And color me impressed, because Episode 2 actually fixed a lot of the issues from Episode 1, at least visually, and I think it actually looks okay. Like the side-by-side comparison, you'd be surprised to learn that this is the same game. But if there's one thing both of these games fail at, it's the music. Yeah, that just about speaks for itself. Now, I've mostly been dissing on Episode 1 so far, but after Episode 1, Iizuka decided to take a step back and decided to work on Episode 2 a bit more, trying to fix all of the issues present in Episode 1. Did they succeed? No, not really. But at least from the beginning, you can definitely see that there was a lot more effort put into the menus, the animations, Tails being playable. Everything is more polished than Episode 1, which is at least thankful. It reaches the bare minimum for a game released in 2011. Editing Davron here, I meant to say 2012, because the game released in 2012. Back to the video. And the game has revamped level design, which is a bit more interesting than the one in Episode 1, I'll give it that. There's less automation, less homing attack chains, but the overall gameplay is still just not very engaging. It's either basic platforming or automated running, with some speed sections thrown in where you can use your momentum, but it's still not that good. At the very least, you can now roll down hills slightly better than Episode 1. So, it has that at least. Where Episode 2 really fucked up is the bosses. It takes so many hits to go down, they have really annoying gimmicks, it's just not very fun to fight in general. My least favorite has to be the scrap heap one after the oil ocean zone. When they're not throwing out their unfair attacks, you're just sitting and waiting for the opening to present itself, just like Sonic Rush. And Sonic Rush has bad bosses, it's the only bad part of that game. And unfortunately they're carried over into Sonic 4, which is made worse because the boss fight music sucks. And they realized how much everyone loved Sky Chase Zone from Sonic 2, so they decided to make that into a full-on boss fight. Can you tell how fun it was? But after this comes a question. Yeah, Sonic 4 is obviously bad, but what makes it the so-called worst Sonic game? Or at least my least favorite. Games like Sonic 06 and Rise of Lyric exist and they're absolutely broken. They're in a much less playable state than Sonic 4, so why is it that I hate Sonic 4 the most? It really boils down to the same name that doomed the game from the start, Sonic 4. It piled on the expectations that they just didn't meet, and created one of the least favorite Sonic games among the fanbase. Had Sega not interfered and called the game Sonic 4 in order to raise sales as a marketing gimmick, I think this game would have gone over a lot better. And Episode 2 just being an all-around better game might have even led to us getting an Episode 3. But I think this game just ruined something that Sega had with the classics of this time, and it's one of the reasons why people hate classic representation today. So to sum it all up, the thing is, with Sonic 4 is that I just don't enjoy playing it. It didn't give me a single moment of joy. There wasn't a single thing I enjoyed to do in Sonic 4. In 06, I at least liked the soundtrack, and in Rise of Lyric I could appreciate what they were going for with the visuals and animation, but here, it gives me nothing. It makes me feel emptier than a Sonic game has ever made me before. And empty is just not a feeling you want when finishing a game. Oh, then there's the whole dirty marketing thing, yeah, this game being called Sonic 4, again. But yeah, overall, Sonic 4, it sucks. But that's it for me, Davron, signing off.